time of the oil embargo, I was a junior analyst serving with the U.S. delegation to negotiating strategic arms with the Soviets in Geneva. And so what I remember most vividly is that the embargo affected virtually all of the developed world. It was not just aimed at the United States. And it was due to political causes. It was the use of oil as a political weapon in response to the Yom Kippur War. And so it was the first blatant use of oil as a political weapon. From a personal standpoint, what I remember are two things. First of all, my wife was with me in Geneva, and she came home a few days later because she wanted to play tourist. And because of the limited supplies of oil, a number of planes were canceled, and so she had to put up with having to stay in London several extra days because she couldn't get a flight because of the oil shortage. What I remember also is the incredibly long gas lines. We lived in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., and the lines would just go on for blocks. So it had a huge, immediate political impact on virtually every American. When I was approached about leading the simulation in 2005, I thought it would be a lot of fun, and I knew a number of the people that were going to be involved in it. It seemed to me this might have be useful and be interesting to do, and I think that there were some very valuable lessons that came out of it. I think the main lesson that I took was how a modest impact on global oil supplies can have a significant economic and political impact. The beginning scenario in the simulation was, in fact, a very small impact of global supply. It was Nigeria, and it was 2 million barrels a day off the market, and yet it had an enormous impact in the simulation in terms of the oil price and the politics as well. And of course, as the simulation went along and more oil was taken off the market, then the consequences grew exponentially. But it all started with a couple of million barrels a day. I think we saw the use of oil as a political weapon, particularly in the 2008, 9, 10, 11 period, in terms of trying to get countries like China to support sanctions against Iran. But because of their dependence on Iran for oil, their willingness to go along with punitive measures against the Iranians on their nuclear program was very limited. But I think it's illustrative of the fact that while our energy supplies have increased, much of the rest of the world remains very dependent on foreign oil exports, and it can be used as a tool. I saw that in the simulation, and how even if we are in reasonably good shape in terms of supply, our security interests and those of our allies can be dramatically affected by the use of oil as a weapon. I think when it comes to dealing with long-term problems, that leaders have to lead. The pressure for change, particularly when it means sacrifice, is almost never going to come from below. It's got to come from the top. And people in leadership positions consistently over a period of time need, above all, to educate people as to the need. There are a lot of things where you can make very modest changes right now that have very significant long-term impacts. But you have to start. And I think you scare people off with big, bold proposals that have potentially significant economic impact. But if you begin to take some modest steps that have long-term dramatic impact, then I think you can actually get something done.